Hi there, guys. It has been a while since I've checked in, and I thought today is the day I'm going to sit down and catch you up on what's been going on. For those of you who've been here before, you'll know that I started my Master of Visual Art about 3 months ago. And if you're new here, welcome. My name's Suze Nethercutt. I'm a visual artist, and I have recently started my Master of Visual Art, and that's after 10 years of professional practice. So there's been a lot going on, a lot of new changes in my life, and yeah, I thought I'd catch you up on what I've been up to for the last few months. So last I checked in with a vlog, I was showing you all the things that I was doing to prepare for my Master of Visual Art, which I was doing a lot of reading, a lot of preparing this studio space for having a whole other activity going on, which is a body of artwork that I'm creating for my Masters, but also spaces that I needed to do research and study and a lot of reading. So if you want to check out that vlog, you can do so. It's a little bit earlier in my feed. I'll leave a link to it in the description. So what have I been up to for the last 3 months? Well, let's go back. I will wind back to July when I started. I started my Masters mid-July officially, but I had been doing quite a bit of reading and preparation before I began. So I actually started meeting with my supervisors and getting access to the library and getting some training in how to do research back then. So just to catch everyone up on the kind of masters I am doing a master's by research, which means that I am undertaking a research project which I am creating and is very much developed out of my personal interest area in female painters of flowers. For those of you who know my work, you'll know why, because I predominantly paint gardens and flowers and landscape. So I have a really big interest in the historical aspect of that, particularly women in the 19th century and what their experience was painting flowers and creating botanical art. So I've been researching that more extensively over the past 3 months. And I really spent, I think, the first month really focusing in deeply on accessing all the material that I finally had access to through the university, such as scholarly articles, books, a whole bunch of stuff. I did have a whole area there that I had stacked up with books over the last 3 months that have just in the last week moved over to my new uni studio, but I'll tell you more about that later. So I have been reading a lot, and I have also been learning a lot about how to do research in 2024, because the last time that I was at university, it was in the 90s. And as you would know, if you were alive then, a lot has changed. Using the internet to do research was very new when I was a postgrad student back then. So learning how to use the systems has been a big part of the literacies that I've been developing and learning over the past few months. So I have been following guidelines set by one of my supervisors is a historian, and she has set me a lot of work in familiarizing myself with all the different databases and how to search within those. I also made appointments with the librarians at my university library. I'm at Federation University. They have a campus here in Ballarat, which is why I chose it really, because I just wanted this to be a really easy local experience. So I have been having appointments with my librarian to learn things like how to use correct search terms on the different databases, how libraries organize that sort of information, and also how to use a citation program called EndNote, which is provided by my university, which was something that I really wanted to get a handle on early, because making citations from scholarly texts, be they journal articles or books, is a big part of the process. So there's been a whole bunch of that sort of stuff alongside just orientation seminars, physical orientations of the campuses. I did one out at the Mount Helen campus here, which is the big main campus where the graduate research school is, which is the school that I am within. And then also I've recently moved into my campus studio, which is right in the middle of town here, above the Post Office Gallery for those who are in Ballarat, which is the University Art Gallery right on the corner of Sturt Street and Lydiard Street. So right in the middle of town in a beautiful old historic building. But I only just moved in there this week, and I think I will make a more dedicated video to the new university campus studio in a forthcoming video, because I'm sort of just finding my feet there. But yeah, had to do a lot of orientations of all the different places that I was going, both online and in person. The highlight has been having access to the art library at the university, which is excellent. I've been really, really impressed with how much material is in the SMB library here in Ballarat. And if you are an artist in Ballarat, you need to know that you can actually access that library. They do allow public memberships at the SMB library at Federation University. And it is excellent. So if you're an artist and you are really wanting to access resource material and books and have an excellent library access, you need to go down there and ask them about having a public membership and being able to go in there and use their resources. And that has been so wonderful, because there have been so many research avenues I've been wanting to follow over the past 18 months that I've sort of have been stopped in my tracks because I haven't had the academic credentials to access scholarly articles, which becomes quite expensive if you're doing that privately. So being able to access all of that and also link in with all these networks all over the world where I can access research material in my area of interest has been absolutely wonderful. And if you've watched any of my previous videos or listened to any of the previous podcasts, you will know that I absolutely love books. If you've been here for a while, you know that I absolutely love reading and learning about art, and being able to have that kind of access has been an absolute highlight. So I've been able to really flesh out my interest area a bit more in a few different directions. From a research perspective, I kind of feel like I'm a little bit all over the place at the moment. There are different research areas that are potentially really rich places for me to explore further. So I've been allowing myself the space to dip into a few of these areas to sort of figure out which has the most potential and which I think will be the richest to focus on for my research project. The way that my master's is structured is I am a master's by research student, which means that I'm not doing a lot of coursework, although there are a few sort of core things that I need to complete as I go along as a postgrad student. I am mainly researching my own area, and I am going to be assessed partly by exhibition and partly by what's called exegesis, which is sort of a smaller thesis that talks about the rationale behind the artwork that I'm going to make. So it's really exciting, but also really hard to figure out what my focus is going to be, because I've had so many ideas, and I know anyone out there that has done postgrad research work will know how true that statement is, that one of the big challenges is finding the place where you're going to narrow in and really focus on your area. So I have been playing around with a few, and I've also been playing around with making quite a lot of really different work that is sort of dipping into different areas of making an artwork that is connected with the research that I'm doing. But because there are so many different areas I'm looking at, it's kind of all over the place at the moment. So I haven't narrowed it down yet. I'm in the really fun stage where I get to explore at the moment, which is such an incredible privilege to be able to do that. And I've really enjoyed being in an extended period of that process of thinking really, really deeply about what I want to explore, what is there for me to explore, and becoming really informed and educated about that by going in and looking at research and looking in archives. And then playing around with artwork and seeing how much potential there is there for me in the artwork and the way that I would like to work over the next few years as I complete my master's. So the areas that I have been looking at so far are 19th century female botanical artists, predominantly in Australia, but also some that were in England before they came out to Australia. So looking very much at that colonial period and the way that women interacted with botanicals and flowers at that time. And that extends, of course, quite a bit from work I already did on my exhibition at the Art Gallery of Ballarat in March, which was called An Ornamental Education, and was sort of looking at that area of female artists. But there's one area that I found really compelling that I keep coming back to, which is the use of herbariums and the participation of women in the creation of herbariums. So for those of you that don't know, a herbarium is pressed specimens of plants that are put together by botanists, and this was something that women were allowed to participate in the early 19th century, so the early 1800s, and many of the early colonial women did participate in that and also communicate with botanists about it. But they were also making their own artwork connected with that was quite different to the field of botany and botanical illustration. And I'm really interested in the creative ways that women interacted with the flora and the botanical interests of the time, and how they kind of worked around the fringes of what was science to create kind of their own modes of expression that were actually highly original. And as part of that research, I very recently, just in the last few weeks, went to Canberra, which is the capital of Australia, to go to the Australian National Library and look at some of the sketchbooks and the scrapbooks and artworks of women that were making artwork at that time. They have quite a big collection of that in Canberra. And I really was very excited by what I found there, and I feel very compelled to look further at that at the moment. The thing that I'm really interested in is how these women interacted with gardens, with their own gardens, with the landscape around them, with building gardens, with going out into nature and collecting what was to them very new flora that was very different to often what they'd left behind in England. And looking at the original ways they recorded that, sometimes it was very in line with the botanical sciences. Other times it was actually this really creative way that they interacted with it. And I'm really interested in looking at sketchbooks and scrapbooks and the more casual ways that women were interacting with the flowers and gardens that they were around. And the way that that's translated into my own work is I've been observing my own garden. I live in a very old house, and it was built during the 1860s here in Ballarat, so it's one of the very early houses that was here during Eureka, Stockade, and all of that really famous historical time we know about in Ballarat, and is very much of the time of the women that I'm studying. And I'm really interested in really being in my own garden and observing the way that I experience that garden, particularly through the conscious lens of knowing that the garden that I've inherited and the home that I am currently the custodian of is a product of colonialism, and which is a really uncomfortable and challenging lens through which to view anything, particularly at this time of decolonisation that we're going through within our culture at the moment, which I think is really important. And I'm really having a very interesting time observing myself in my garden and recording my garden. And I'm taking botanical pressings from my garden, and I'm also creating sketchbooks of my environment and blending those together in kind of what I hope is my unique way as a woman in 2024. So that's sort of one area that I feel like is probably the most progressed that I've been fleshing out. As part of that, I've also been spending time in my parents' garden in northeast Victoria. They live in a tiny town called Oxley. They live on a couple of acres of land. They're incredible gardeners, and they have built an incredibly beautiful garden over the past 25 years where they live, and that to me is a very important sense of home. They built a mud brick house which is built from the soil on the land, and I spent a couple of days actually painting in their springtime garden after the trip to Canberra, because my parents came on that trip with us, which was really lovely. And I was really wanting to think about what had influenced me from my youthful years of being raised by gardeners and with an appreciation for gardens, and how that's influenced me and my art practice as a painter of flowers, and also my attraction to living where I live, which is a beautiful, cool climate place where you can have a gorgeous garden of what are essentially European flowers. And I've really very much inherited that from my parents and been trained into appreciating the beauty of that type of flower because of the way that I was raised. So it's been really interesting stepping into those spaces within my own home and within the place where I grew up, and really considering those questions of what influences me. So there's sort of two areas that I've looked at. I think I've shelved the idea I had about investigating my great-grandmother, who was a painter, who there are several paintings in my parents' home that she completed. She was born at the end of the 1800s. Know very little about her in terms of her painting career, because she then went on to get married and having 4 children and being a farmer's wife, so she had no time to practice art and did very little after then. And no one's really recorded anything about her, which I find incredibly sad, but I don't think she's the person to investigate for my master's project. I think I want to stay on the track I am with the botanical artists and looking at those sketchbooks and all of that stuff. So there's a lot of different ideas bubbling away and a lot of different ways into my master's project that I've been considering and working with. A lot of different creative practices that I've been undertaking connected with that over the past 3 months, as I kind of think about what is going to be the best creative expression for that. And I've shared just a little bit about those things that I've made on social media, because they're all very embryonic ideas and I haven't quite felt like I know what I'm doing yet, so it kind of feels weird to be sharing, and I'm quite protective of my creative ideas when they are embryonic, because I don't really want to be influenced by outside responses and opinions to what I've been doing. I did share one of the sketchbooks that I completed of my backyard in winter a little while ago on Instagram, which felt like it was okay to share. But yeah, there's been other things that I've created that I haven't shared yet because they're kind of out there, and they're also kind of difficult to share actually, that play around with the idea of the herbarium. And I don't know, I'll have a think about if I'm going to share those down the track. But yeah, it's a really interesting stage to be in, actually, this early stage of a master's research project. I thought that I'd share a lot more about the journey as I was going on, but I found myself being really apprehensive about just clicking publish on those little, Instagram stories and things that ordinarily I would share. I, for a start, often don't even pick up my phone to record what I'm doing, because I'm very in the moment and I'm very deeply immersed, and I don't want to be disrupted by social media stuff, that whole idea of capturing those moments too much, because it takes me out of these deep thought states that I'm in as I'm working, and I want to stay with those and have more extended moments of those, because that's where I'm doing the real work as an artist. So I'm still kind of figuring out how I'm going to share this as I go along. 3 months between YouTube videos about this is probably a bit long, but to be honest, it's been really hard to find the time to do YouTube videos, because they're quite time consuming, and to do podcasts. But I do really want to capture the experience. So I'm hoping that I'll record these when I get the chance, and hopefully find a way to do that that's not too time consuming in terms of how I get that out to you. Because I really want to share this journey with you, and I want to record it for my own memory and to remember the different stages that I go through on this project. I know that there are probably a lot of really curious people out there, other artists that are really interested in this choice that I've made, for good or for worse. I kind of feel like a lot of people don't get what I'm doing. And there are a lot of people that do get why I've chosen to do what I'm doing. Going back to uni at the age of 49 is an interesting choice to make, to say the least. But I absolutely am loving the process. I'm absolutely loving being in a space where I get to focus deeply on things that matter to me. I'm getting access to archives and material that was made by women, you know, over 150 years ago, and researching them through the lens of an artist, which when I'm reading the literature that I'm going through as I'm researching each of them, I'm realizing that there are things that I'm seeing in those archives and in those materials that haven't really been discussed by other art historians. They may have been discussed by other artists in areas that I haven't seen yet, but it is making me aware that I am seeing things that other people aren't seeing when they're interacting with those primary sources, with those sketchbooks, with those scrapbooks, with those very intimate places that women in that time were recording what they were doing. And one of the really compelling things that I keep seeing over and over again, and I saw multiple times in the archives in Canberra, in the beautiful work I looked at there, was how often women picked flowers and pressed them between the pages of their diary, or pressed them between the pages of their sketchbook. This idea of wanting to capture nature and flatten it and preserve it, and that these samples actually survive. They're actually still in a lot of these books, and I think there's something about that that I can't quite let go of. So at this stage, I think that's where the focus is. I may come on here in another little while and have a completely different story to share with you. I really don't know where it's all leading, but that's kind of the place where I'm meant to be at this stage of my master's. I've had, I think, 3 supervision meetings so far. I think I'm on track. I think this is how it plays out for everyone. Kind of a bit all over the place and trying all the things and looking at all the things. But yeah, I'll have to start thinking probably in another 2 months about really narrowing down my focus and figuring out what the project is about. And I think by the time I get to that stage, hopefully I'll be feeling like I can share more of the work, because I'll have more of an idea about what I'm doing. But the nature of practice-led research is that your practice leads what you are researching. And in my case, I think the research is leading a lot of my practice. There's this cyclical process going on that I'm noticing at the moment, which is very much what practice-led research is about. And I am going to unpack what the heck that is one day. I'm thinking of asking someone to come on to talk about it with me who has a bit more expertise in that field. So I'll keep you posted on that, but I'd better wrap this up here. Leave me a comment below. I'd love to know what you're up to. If there are any other postgrad students out there, I would love to hear about what you're up to. If you're an artist working in your studio on a new project and you're doing research or in that yummy phase, I'd love to know about that too. So be sure to pop in to the comments and let me know. Thanks for joining me today, and I hope wherever you are, you're having a beautiful creative day. If you've gotten this far in the video, thanks so much for watching till the end. I really appreciate it. If you can give it a thumbs up, that actually makes a massive difference to how this video goes in the YouTube. And if you subscribe, that's even better. So if you get a chance, please do that. I will hopefully check in before too long when there is more to report. I'd love to show you the new studio and how that has come up. Take exquisite care of yourselves, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.